So recently, I've been seeing a lot of articles saying that a lot of people are leaving California, which is pretty bizarre. Can you think about it? As for the reason why, I can see a lot of reasons why that people in my generation are deciding to move out of California. As you can see, currently, the prices in California are not going down, they are going up. The most notable is taxes. Taxes are being raised in California at a really ridiculous rate, while the income of the people are being stagnated. They're not matching the level what it costs the standard of living in California. If you think about it, you look at the current state income tax. This does not even include federal tax. The state income tax for the highest bracket for people who make over 1 million is 13.3%. But most people are like, who cares? Those are the people who make tons of money. Who cares if they get taxed? Well, if you think about it, you look at the people who make not less than $1 million around the 100K bracket range, including married couples. They're paying about almost 10% of their gross income. So that's basically before they pay taxes. After they pay the federal tax, which is ridiculously high, that one which you cannot avoid, that is state level. That one takes away a big portion of your money. Now you have the state income tax, which takes another portion of money. For people making around 100,000, that's in California, take about, I believe, about 9.5%, which is pretty ridiculous. If you look at other states like Washington, Nevada, Texas, I believe Tennessee, I believe there's a few more that have no state income tax. Why are a lot of businesses and like from small to big business owners and medium business owners are moving to other states like that is because it's the regulation. It's killing them. It just can't stay open. For example, one notable article that I do agree with is during this pandemic with this disease that's going on, you look at Disneyland and Disney World. I recently saw an article saying that Disney World is open and they're still able to hang on and survive and still run their operations. They're just not making as much money, but they don't have to fire all their employees. But over here, thanks to our current policies and our current government, Disneyland is closed, and recently, I believe back about a month ago, they had to lay off 28,000 employees at Disneyland because they can't sustain them. It's not the CEO of Disneyland's fault, it's basically the governor because they didn't let them open it back up. So all those people, 28,000 people, don't have jobs. So what do? They had to basically file bankruptcy, and until then, they can't open back up until they're allowed to. But the most noticeable is driving a lot of people out is wealth. The wealth is being divided between lower class and upper class. The middle class is being driven out. The upper class, they don't have any problems because they know how to manage their money correctly. And also, living in California is very expensive is because all the policies is basically raising taxes. For example, if you look at the property tax, if you look on Google, the property tax is actually pretty low in California, which is a proposition passed, I believe, back in like 1970. But if you look actually between the fine lines, the property tax in California is not as low as you think. If you read the small little words that they put in their description and their disclaimers, it's really sneaky. It's basically after you do a refinance or do an inheritance, they get to switch and refinance your house to a current level of what it's worth. So basically, they give the state the right to raise your property tax until the current value, which is pretty ridiculous, especially if you own a home that's in California back in like 1950s, 1970s. You own a home for like your whole life. You just want to move it to your children. They'll always find a way to take your money, which is pretty ridiculous in this state. What's next is what drives a lot of people away around the middle class, because the middle class right now is the ones that are suffering the most in California. The lower class, the poor, are basically receiving a bunch of pensions. I mean, it's nothing wrong giving them pensions, but there's a point in time, like, if you give them too much, they're basically going to abuse the system. So there's got to be like a fine line, and that fine line, that balance has been broken a long, long time ago. And the rich, I mean, at this point, even the rich are moving up because they can't withstand the policies here that are being enacted against them. What the most noticeable thing that currently that I'm living in California is the homeless problem. The homeless problem is actually becoming pretty bad. And I can tell is because in my city, where I'm currently living at, used to be no homeless. You rarely see any homeless people here. And also within the past few years, you see more and more homeless people moving in. I mean, I do feel bad for them, but do understand that. But there's a point in time, like when more homeless people come, it lowers down the property value. And second of all, besides the homeless people, I mean, you gotta have to help them get them shelter, right? We have like one of the most homeless people in the state, out of the whole entire nation. And what thing that drives me nuts is a lot of people around me, especially Asians, don't really like to speak out as much. It got to the point I have to say something about this because it's at this point I really hope that the next election or next voting for a ballot, please vote. I mean, even if you don't like both presidents, it's fine. The main point is the ballots in your state. If you actually pay close attention within the years, all the ballots, that propositions that come out, for example, this year, the biggest proposition that came out that can really affect how our living style, our lifestyle here, is Proposition 13, 15, and another big one that will affect other people who would like to take side jobs is, I believe, is either 21 or 22. It has to do with Uber turning their contracts and employees. Before we get into that, we gotta look at the propositions. I believe people should not be voting by judging how people look or way they speak is by their policies. Always vote by their policies. At this point, you gotta see what they're trying to offer. Because if you look at the previous propositions in the previous years, all of them in this state is always raising taxes. Always from some type of program they want to enact, there's like basically no guarantee of what's gonna work or not. And they don't give us any detailed report or just hide it underneath, just swoop underneath the rug, under the bus, and forget about it. So when they enact these propositions, I always vote no for them because I find it's ridiculous because none of the propositions is trying to help us. They're always trying to get money out of us of either one way or another. The most notable thing that drives me nuts is taxes on vehicles and gasoline. Basically, out of the whole entire nation, we get taxed I believe about 50 cents per gallon, which is pretty unbelievable if you look at other states, which is way cheaper. I understand what the current government is trying to do. He's trying to get rid of all the gasoline cars and have electric cars within, I don't know what span of time he's trying to do, but the problem is gasoline cars are still way cheaper than electric cars. Don't get me wrong, electric cars are great. Personally, I own one too. But the problem is, like, what happened to all the other people who can't own one? If they can't get a car that's as cheap and they can't afford it, and what they're gonna do, have to buy a used car? I mean, there's nothing wrong buying a used car, but like, you're taking away their option to buy a new car. If you want an electric car to pass and, provide them better policies. So what drives me nuts is the small business owners and medium business and moderate business owners, they can't take it because the regulation here is just regulating the crap out of them to the point that when I see a lot of shops and restaurants here, they're moving out. They're getting out of California and moving to places like Texas and Nevada and Washington, where their policies are a lot lighter and a lot lenient against business owners. And I see a lot of groups saying that, oh, these people make so much money, they should be taxed more. But you think about it, they work really hard to get to where they are. And as people complain, what do they do? So my understanding is, after running a business personally myself, you don't want to be an employee, you want to be the employer. The employer is the one that makes the money. The employer is the one who has to put down the work, the effort, and take the biggest risk out of the employees. To take a risk is make it work and make it happen, and plan together and make a business plan, a business model that work for their current business. What people don't understand, majority of people are employees. I highly suggest you, even be an employee, there's nothing wrong with that. Even become an employee, always take a step in trying to be the employer. So basically, if you're right now, you want to make more money, and with your current income, just keep your current job. Try out another business. Try to be an employer that opens up a business and attempt something new. If you find something in the market value that really requires what you need, then you make money. As simple as that. Back to the topic of California currently. California's major problem that a lot of people saying are moving out, besides the taxes are going to cost you an arm and a leg. I mean, taxing the crap out of water, electricity. I mean, it gets to the point I'm not even surprised you're going to tax you every time you take a breath. But, I mean, what else? Besides gas, they're trying to push for electric. The next part that I hear a lot is crime. Crime in California compared about, say, about 2000 to 2010. At that time was alright. I mean, it wasn't super bad, but now it's honestly getting worse and worse by the year. I don't know what's going on in the state level and the local government level, but they are seriously not doing their jobs right. There is something wrong when I live in a pretty good neighborhood, never had my cars ever smashed in or anything stolen from my car. Have been happening within the past 5 years. One of my parents' cars actually got broken into to start parking in the business parking lot. So they had their car smashed into, and the police came. They won't do anything because apparently it wasn't worth their time, which is pretty ridiculous. And all these small crimes, the problem is small crimes will always lead to bigger crimes. So when these small crimes happen, it gives the criminals a greater advantage and make them more bolder to attempt the bigger things. So at this point, I can see why a lot of people are saying that California is not as safe as it used to be, the homeless problem, and currently, the homeless problem is actually not a joke. It's really bad. And those people seeing those other videos on YouTube besides this one and saying it's really bad, or just like, oh, it's over-exaggerated. Maybe it's one part of the area. No, it's really bad. It is so bad. Honestly, I'll probably slap poop emojis all over downtown and avoid there. And the ones when I talk about needles on the floor, last time I've been there was about a couple months ago for the date from this video is being posted. Man, right before I entered there, when they call it Tent City, they weren't joking. It is seriously like Tent City. It is so bad to the point they actually put porta potties for them. And the most saddest thing I've seen of that were people defecating in the streets and needles, heroin. I'm not surprised that a lot of people don't want to live here anymore. It's bad. And also all the new construction projects and housing, those being built in downtown, all those people who bought housing there, those values are going straight down the drain. Because last time I went to Japanese town, it was, I'll say back in 10 years ago, it was really nice. But currently, when I came back, moving a couple months ago to go there to go shopping, just to buy some food and groceries, because I haven't been there for so many years, God, before I even made it to that area in part of downtown, I just wanted to get out already. It was that bad. And those videos being posted online on YouTube saying how bad it is and the homeless problem, it's horrible. After being living in California my whole life, I can say these past couple years were probably one of the worst years out of the rest. But I mean, why people stay here is like there will be comments saying, why do you still stay in California? Because, you know, a lot of people say, well, for me, it's personally family and friends, and also I guess it was the weather too. The weather here is always sunny, never rains. There's no such thing as like 4 seasons. I more like say it's more like 1 or 2 seasons, mainly 1, because it's usually really warm. And besides the benefits, I mean, that's it, because the traffic here is absolutely horrendous. And the traffic problem, I mean, you've seen how the government tried to fix the traffic problem. They swept it underneath the rug. They talk about building the bullet train, and you think about it, that news article, it just suddenly disappeared one day. They talked about it for about, I believe about a month. Spent millions and billions of dollars, and all of a sudden, boom, gone. Never talked about again. That means, obviously, you know what happens afterwards. That means they never finished it. And there's also an attempt by Tesla to build a rail system, I believe, an underground rail system, if I remember correctly. He tried to finish it by 2021. And it was becoming mainstream popular when he announced it in the media around 2019. And you think about it, it's been 2 years now. Why hasn't been any updates about when they're building their little tunnel system to move people around, increase transportation, and reduce traffic? If you think about it, based on all the policies and how much regulation is enacted on the business, you basically, at this point, I see it as he probably dropped the project because it's too hard to build this system here, even if you try. So, I mean, the biggest giveaway is you should know that California is having problems and not treating their business owners well. When you see big companies, tech corporations, such as Tesla and Elon Musk, and when they start building factories in other places, like the factories in China, to build one in China, because there's a big market there and they open up for them. Number 2, there's another big major red flag. If you see Tesla building electric cars in Texas, which is mainly an oil-based state. They made electric gasoline cars, but there's a big problem. You see Tesla, an electric car company, a tech company, and visionary, move straight to Texas, compete against those people instead of building California. I mean, he still has his Fremont plant here, but the one in Texas, if you read a couple articles about it, that place is expanding like crazy. It's meant to housing new vehicles. So at this point, I see as Tesla is just he doesn't want to deal with Elon Musk, doesn't want to deal with the crap that the current governor in the state of California is giving him and all their senators.